You're listening to another episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, it's a little gloomy day today, supposedly, now that spring is here. I could tell you spring is here because I'm all clogged up, and Robin, bless her heart, she's really clogged up. I mean, when the trees start budding, here comes the allergies. That happened to you, Taylor? With the allergies?
Always.
Always, yeah. I thought you had
Always.
allergy issues, with the pollen
Yep.
comes out, and then your car comes out, and there's all these little squiggly things all over it, and it kind of a slight yellow haze on it, and yeah, I love spring. I actually my favorite time of the year is fall, and not just because of football, even though that does help. Um, it's just like the weather better, but spring also is when my yard, the weeds go in before the grass, and so a yard looks kind of wonky, and you got to fight it. But anyway, today I'm going to talk about 2024. I know that's early, but the thing about it is most presidential campaigns start about this time. In fact, I'm really surprised so far. We're in March of a year away from primary season, and we only have a handful, about 2 or 3 declared candidates. And we'll talk about the very strong possibility, by the way, of a rematch of 2020, which makes me want to poke my eyes out with a sharp stick. I don't know about y'all, but I could do without it. But my point is that I'm going to look at both Biden and Trump, the moves that Biden is making politically to make him more centrist in his approach. And then, of course, the statements and condition of Mr. Trump's campaign, including possible indictments. But you know what can't be indicted is our sponsors, because they do such a great job. CrossFit Burleson, thank you, Daniel. CrossFitBurleson.com is their page. I'll tell you everything you need to know about memberships, plans, classes, etc. Go over there, take a look. They got early morning classes, they got evening classes, they have trainers, they have the whole regimen. So check out CrossFit Burleson for the workout that you're looking for. Sorry. A little bit of dust in the air too. Shandy Stogsdill, who had on yesterday, had Shandy on. We talked about her campaign and some of her positions. We had a very engaging in conversation. It really just became a conversation between the two of us. So I'd like for y'all to drop in and catch that, because you'll find out her positions on vouchers and other things like that. But she's in her capacity as real estate, and she is the person to talk to if you want to move in and around the Burleson area, because she knows where the houses are. She knows about what's going on sale and what they should be going for, and she has connections with the mortgage lenders, so the whole thing. So check out Shandy Stocksdale on our page if you really want to be serious about moving into this area. Also, Otto, the big time entrepreneur that he is, he opened up his store yesterday in Cleburne, his new restaurant. I like the sign he put on his picture. Sorry, we're open. Thank you, Otto. I like a little bit of irony in my neon signs, but Otto is going to, I'm sure, have the same kind of service and the same kind of quality of food that you see in all his restaurants. It's one of the I guess, in my opinion, one of the best places to go to in Burleson, for not just for the food, but for the atmosphere and the service and just the down home feeling. Also, another place I like to go to for the atmosphere and the service is not our place. I'm reading the same thing. Wild Cigar and Culture. There you go. Sorry, Chris. Wild Cigar and Culture. Go over there. You have a nice quiet drink. You have a nice smoke. If you don't know really what your tobacco tastes are, the tobacconist will help you out with that. They got a really nice bar, so you can get something decent, and you can do business there, or just read the paper, or that's a very old-fashioned statement. Read the internet news. Yes. But you can go over there and you can do all sorts of things over there. They got a meeting place, by the way. So if you have a business and you want to have like a kind of a relaxed business casual meeting, and then afterwards have a drink, that's a great place to do it. Also, Tiffany Nico, of course, with Local Life Magazine, locallifetx.com is up. It also is a great place to find advertisements for the local area. If you are looking for something in this area to advertise for, or let me rephrase that. If you're looking for something for a specific product, that's a better way to put it. I'm sorry, I was distracted for a moment. If you're looking for something in specific, that's a great place to find it. If you're looking for HVAC, you're looking for, health insurance or whatever, you got all these things going on. Local Life Magazine is a good place to find it. It's a great place to advertise. You go to 30,000 homes and whatnot. She also is responsible for a lot of our community events, which are always really well done. Thank you also to Southern Gym. They're open today, and you don't want to miss that. Definitely, Southern Gym is a great place to do if, your jewelry repairs, your evaluations, designs, also inventory. They hope to be moved in to the new location by Kentucky Derby Day. Actually, is their their main day. It sounds kind of funny because Gayla really likes Kentucky Derby and all things horse related. So it'll be there by hopefully mid-April. It just depends on so many things, of course, contractors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know the drill. Also, thank you to our friend Michelle over at Hotworks in 731, John Jones. She is I really enjoy talking with her because she just really knows her stuff and about not just about the health issues of infrared, but just about a lot of issues, really. So, anyway, go visit Michelle, and she could tell you what kind of workout you would like for whatever issue you're trying to deal with, like inflammation or joints or whatever else. They have 11 different workouts, and so you can get what you want over there. Also, thank you to Melissa Harmon over at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, 682-804-0534. She'll check out your insurance, help you save some money if possible. And normally it is, but if you have the best insurance possible with somebody else, she'll tell you that. So you're not going to get some hard sale or anything like that. But more likely with Texas Farm Bureau being the kind of company they are, you're going to get a discount. And I did. I had a good insurance company. I had no problems with the one I had before, but when I had to review what I had, I saved some money and upgraded my house and life insurance. So there you go. Let's see what else we got going on in the community. A week from tomorrow, March 29th at 8:45. Be there about 8:30, actually. Where BNI is going to have their Visitors Day. Now, I've sent a few of y'all emails, but if you really want to know about this, send me an email. BNI is an international networking group. It isn't just a bunch of guys getting together for donuts and coffee. There are chapters all over the DFW area, and so we often get cross chapter referrals. And so if you have a situation like this particular chapter, say in Mansfield or Fort Worth, doesn't have what they're looking for, but they know the Burleson one does, they will hook us up, and we've done that for them too. So you're not just getting a local outfit, you're getting something that covers the DFW area. Actually, like I said, it's international, but if you're looking for DFW, this will do it. And so March 29th, 2023, be there. We'll have presentations, we'll have a few testimonials, things of that nature, and see if you want to grow your business. So over at the Hampton, it's at the Hampton Inn on Jake Court across from our place. Also, it's getting close. Light up the night, April 1st for Center for ASD. They're going to have it over at the Brick. It's no charge to get into the Brick. It's going to be a community event. They're going to have a petting zoo. They're going to have Checkers the Magician. They're going to have glow in dark activities, food trucks, vendors, a live DJ, on and on and on. If you want to know more about it, if you want to sponsor it, call Bianca Lowry over at the Center for ASD. They do really, really great work for our community. They've been on my show several times. I'm very proud that they choose my platform as a venue of getting their word out because they do tremendous work for this community. So there you go. All right. I'll have a little water before I go. When you take an antihistamines, that helps too. Anyways, talk about Biden first in 2024. First, there's two things I want to say about Joseph Biden running again. And I'm going to try to be as objective as I can. I'm not a fan of Biden. Y'all know that, but I'm not going to sit there and slam him and all this other business. I'm going to try to look at the campaign political aspect of it. First of all, anybody that thinks he's not running again is not paying attention. He absolutely is going to run again. No president who is eligible for another term bypasses it voluntarily. The last president that said no thank you to a second term was James K. Polk in 1848. Every other second term wannabe either was denied that nomination by their party or they lost. Okay. So the point is this idea that Joe is he going to run, is he going to not? That's just political media gets bored very, very easily. And so they try to create these stories out of thin air. Joe will be running. Second of all, if the Republicans see Joe Biden's an easy target, they better think again. And I'm not just saying that from my vantage point. I've read particularly Rich Lowry, if you're not familiar with him, he's the editor of National Review, and he writes not only for them, but also for Politico and the New York Post. And he wrote 3 articles this week saying the same thing. If you think Joe Biden's an easy target, Republicans, you better think again. Joe Biden's going to have the benefit of a unified Democrat Party, and they're going to have the benefit of incumbency. And if people think, well, we're going to have a disaster between now and Election Day, and his, recession, military event, whatever else, I'd hate to be in that uncomfortable position to wish disaster upon my country just for political advantage. That's what happens. Is that you start rooting against the economy. Oh, darn, the job numbers weren't as bad as I hoped they'd be. The stock market's still not crashed yet. On and on and on. You don't want to be in that position. But Joe Biden, according to Lowry, is going to have a lot of advantages. Plus, he'll have the media advantages. There's no question that particularly if Trump is his opponent, he's going to have tremendous media support in the mainstream media. A lot of the things that we see with our own eyes, so to speak, about Joe Biden, the media will not acknowledge. In my opinion, Joe Biden is too old. And not just because he's 80, but because he acts every day of it. To me, when I see Joe Biden, particularly he's giving a speech, he's reading off a teleprompter and he's squinting at the screen, and then he walks off without taking questions. His day is over around 2:00 in the afternoon, and that's by White House's own schedule. He does not campaign or work past certain hours. He goes home every weekend. So the idea of putting the hours in isn't happening. Now, I'm not going to tell you Trump was, a workaholic. He absolutely was not. But we're not saying, but what about Trump? What we're saying is this is a president we have right now. This is who the Democrats are going to support right now. So I'm just focusing on him and not trying to make overt comparisons to the possible candidates against him. Anyway, back to that. Lowry has good points also, is that the Democrats tend to support their candidates better than the Republicans do. There's an old saying, Democrats fall in line, Republicans fall in love. Republicans, for the most part, have to be enthusiastic about their candidate. Democrats will hold their nose and vote for whom their party is nominated. Now, whether you think that's a good political strategy or a good political position to take or not, who cares? I'll tell you the truth, because all it really matters is what box they check at the voting booth. It's more likely that Republicans will sit out an election because they do not like their candidate more than the Democrats do. There are a lot of Democrats that did not like Joe Biden. There's a lot of Democrats now that don't like Joe Biden, but they're going to vote for him. There's a lot of Republicans now that if it isn't Trump, they're not going to vote. And that's, to me, insane. But that's the way it works. Okay, a lot of Republicans, for whatever reason, did not care for Mitt Romney in 2012, and so the turnout was less among Republicans than what it should have been. Now, would he have beaten Mr. Obama with the typical turnout? It's not likely, but it had been a lot closer. But we know that there were a lot of Republican votes that just sat on the sidelines because they didn't think he was conservative enough, he wasn't Republican enough. Maybe his Mormon background was offensive to some of the less tolerant, shall we say. But the point of the matter is that the Democrats are going to line up and vote for this guy, regardless. Right now, there's a lot of progressive Democrats that are very, very angry with Mr. Biden. I'll give you 3 ways that they're angry in the last month. One is Joe Biden campaigned in 2020, literally saying not 1 square foot of federal land will be opened up for drilling. 2 weeks ago, he opened up several hundred square miles of Alaska for drilling for Conoco. Now, he'll tell you because of legal obligations and all this other business, he had no choice. That's rubbish. They could have fought it in court for years if they were really that serious about it. But he basically allowed for 3 major platforms to be opened up in what they call, quote, pristine wilderness. In other words, there's nothing out there. There's no roads, nothing. It literally is untouched. And the environmentalists are gone crazy. Will they vote for him? Yes. But they are very upset with that Alaska drilling. Second thing, the immigration supporters are really mad at him because Joe Biden has resumed many of the same policies that Mr. Trump had. including family detentions, and in some cases, separation of families, which was so heinously discussed about back in Trump's administration about how cruel and inhuman it was. And Joe Biden campaigned on that. He called it cruel and inhuman. He called Trump's policies an abomination and all these other things. Yet he's using the same policies. Biden never formally repealed or or uh, or eliminated Trump's policies about immigration. He basically made them inactive, and then he's activating them again. And he knows on May 11th, when that Title 42, the COVID-related incident about a COVID-related not incident, the COVID-related part of the law that allows us to deport people because of COVID concerns, when that expires, it's going to be like the Oklahoma land rush, and he knows that. So we have now resumed detaining people in the very same facilities that both Mr. Obama and Mr. Trump built. And the people are insane about that. They're crazy. They're mad. But they're going to vote for him? Yes, they will. So many of the illegal immigration issues that plagued the Trump administration are much worse under Mr. Biden, and he's now reverting to Mr. Trump's policies. Third thing, Mr. Biden never explicitly ran on to fund the police or any of that business. He's made it in his statements very overt that he's not in favor of defunding the police or anything like that. But he did run in 2020 on the basis that many of the criminal laws and the penalties associated with it are unfair and harsh on minorities. A month ago, District of Columbia voted on a whole series of penal reforms, primarily lowering the jail time associated with some pretty violent crimes like carjacking, assault, etc. Now, since District of Columbia is a federal district, not its own state, those laws have to be approved of by Congress because Congress has direct authority over D.C. Biden says he'll sign it. So it goes to the House, and 173 Democrats vote in favor of this reform. Now, it did not pass the House, of course, because it is a Republican-run House. And before it went to the Senate, Biden changed his mind and says he will sign whatever comes out of the Senate. And the Senate passed the House bill almost intact. And he signed it. So he basically negated DC's lowering of penalties. And a lot of the more liberal progressives are boiling mad because they see the penalties that are associated with many of these crimes as predominantly applied to say, Black or Hispanic part of our population. And they said it was racist and all this other stuff. Will they vote for him? Yes, they will. Last thing as well, Joe Biden has been yelling and hollering about how the Republicans want to blow up Social Security and Medicare. 6 weeks ago, he comes out with his budget. Not a single line of that budget dealt with Social Security reforms. It was status quo all the way down the line. Joe Biden knows that beginning in about a decade, we're going to start running an insolvency on Social Security. That's somebody else's problem. And so, because he won't be president by then. But he knows that if he proposed the kind of reforms that his own administration has advised, he would cost him votes. And so he's not going to touch it. Second of all that business about school loans that is now in front of the Supreme Court and will be decided on in a couple of months, not a line in it talks about forgiveness of school loans, despite all that routine he had in 2020. Not one line in it forgives $1 of school loans. And so if the Supreme Court does what I expect it to do, which is to shut that down, to declare it a violation of the Constitution, then the students are going to get jack. Now, I am on the record to be not in favor of the forgiveness of school loans, but I'm also not in favor of exploiting the hopes of people in order for votes. He announced this back in August when the polls are a little bit different about the Democrats' chances in the off-year races. And now he got what he needed. He got the votes from the young people on the hope that they would get some of their loans forgiven. Well, if he really was serious about that, he would have put it in the budget. Now, would I want them to pass it? No. But here, my friend Jeff B. here makes a comment. Make no mistake, Biden is not a liberal. like almost all other politicians that do very little for the individual and answer to corporate interests first. That's a complaint that's often levied against Republicans, but it is true on the Democrat side as well, particularly when it comes to Silicon Valley and media and Hollywood and you know, organized labor, things of that nature. No question about that. But my point also is that um, that Biden campaigned to try to get the progressive vote in 2020, and he thought of himself as FDR in the first 2 years of his term, and that's why he proposed some incredibly liberal stuff. That a lot of it was not enacted because of Joe Manchin. But now we're getting close to election time. He's tacked back to the middle. Joe Biden is not a bright politician. He's an opportunist, and he's not a leader by any means. He never has been a leader. He's always been the follower in the Senate. Whatever the Democrat Party and where the winds are blowing, he was going to be there. He was not going to be left out. He's not for all my criticisms of Bernie Sanders, and I have plenty of them. Bernie Sanders doesn't tack with the wind. He says, this is it. You don't like it, that's your problem. I could deal with that a lot better than somebody who is always looking for which way the wind blows, like Bob Dylan sang. And so now he's showing his true political colors. He's never been a liberal. He's always been just, again, wherever the wind blows, and he'll take it. Now he's tacking back to the center to try to appeal to moderate votes. Why can he do that? I'll say it one more time. Those progressives, they'll hold their nose, but they're not going to run a third-party candidate. They're not going to primary him, as they say. There won't be any serious contender. There is one other Democrat primary nominee, Marianne Williamson, some self-help guru who they've written about in the last couple of weeks. It was an absolute disaster in terms of how she handles her staff and whatnot, but she's running on love and peace and grooviness. So there's not going to be a serious candidate. You're not going to see Bernie run it against him again. You're not going to see Elizabeth Warren or Pete Buttigieg and these other guys. It's going to be basically an open field. The last time you had a contested primary in a party, it cost the Republicans back in 1992 with George H.W. Bush. Again, that falls in line with they fall in love, not in line, because some people set that election out because they didn't get the guy they wanted, which is Pat Buchanan. And thank God we didn't get Pat Buchanan. You think I'm conservative? He makes me look like a New Dealer. Anyway, so there you are. Biden will be your nominee. God forbid anything happened to him otherwise. I'm not wishing him bad health or anything like that at all. That's I don't get into that kind of crap, but he will be your nominee as it presently is standing. Let's talk about Mr. Trump. I'm not quite as sure Mr. Trump will be the Republican nominee, but I am a lot more confident that if he's not, he'll run third party, and that's going to destroy the Republican Party. And maybe that's the price they pay for accommodating them all these years. Will DeSantis or others, Nikki Haley, who's also declared, for the record, DeSantis is not formally declared, but he's already been to Iowa and New Hampshire, and he's made all the noises. But the only formally declared candidate in the Republican nomination other than Trump is Nikki Haley, former governor of South Carolina and UN ambassador. I don't have a real problem at all with Nikki Haley, but she ain't got a chance. And it's not because she's a woman or anything like that. It's because the oxygen in the Republican Party is boiled down to about two people, and that is DeSantis and Trump. Now, if for some reason, some way, Nikki Haley became the Republican nominee, I think many of the moderates, even moderate Democrats, would find her at least something they could live with. But as far as a hard right, I'm not sure. Nikki Haley is a quality candidate. She was a quality Republican governor, but it's just going to be tough. I don't think the fact that she's a woman is the reason why she would have a hard time. I think right now, if the Republicans said the only way you'll win the presidency is with a woman, they'd line up and vote for her twice. But that being said, she is the only one other than Trump that's declared. So back to Mr. Trump. First of all, will these possible indictments hurt Mr. Trump? And the answer is yes and no. Depends which indictment you're talking about. If you're talking about the one that's currently in the news a lot about that payment to a porn star in New York City, that's a joke. And I'm not saying if people have listened to my show very long at all, they know I'm not a fan of Trump at all. But this is something that would probably, in most other cases, have been at best adjudicated out of court with some sort of settlement with the FEC or whatever governing body it was. The crime they're accusing Mr. Trump of is taking campaign money to pay off that porn star. So it violates federal election laws. He didn't pay for it out of his own pocket, in other words, out of donors' pockets. Is that against the law? Yes. Is that critical? I don't think laws are on the books should be dismissed because I don't think they're important enough. But if people think that this is the first time that's ever happened, payoffs or other misuse of campaign money, they haven't been paying attention. And I think if Mr. Trump was not the Republican candidate or former president, this wouldn't be making much news at all. And I do believe what Wall Street Journal and National Review, both of which are no fans of Mr. Trump at any means, I think that they do, that this is just a political stunt by the DA of Manhattan. Alvin Bragg is his name, and he's looking to make a name. He's a progressive, um, enthusiastic follower of limited police activity and low sentencing and plea bargaining. He's going after Mr. Trump hammer and tong because of the politics. I do believe that to be true. Did Mr. Trump violate the law? I think so, but that's what a court will decide. What will the punishment be? If the Democrats are thinking he's going to be handcuffed and thrown into jail for 6 months or 2 years, they're delusional. That's not going to happen. Now, that being said, there's another possible indictment coming out of Georgia. This is the one if I were y'all, be paying more attention to. What the DA in Fulton County in Georgia is investigating and put in front of the grand jury is, did Mr. Trump illegally pressure or try to manipulate the election returns of Georgia in 2020? And the evidence is a little bit more clear. They got recordings of him pushing the Georgia Secretary of State to try to get him to find 12,000 more votes. And there's other testimony from some of them from Republicans that are talking about the pressure and the intensity of that pressure to try to manipulate the vote counts and misreport them and things of that nature. That one is the one I would be more concerned about if I were Trump's legal team, which I thank God I'm not. And so I don't know when that indictment, if it happens, is supposed to come down, but they say any day now, and that kind of routine. It's just basically it's say tune in later so keep the readership numbers up. But Georgia is where I would look, not this case in Manhattan. That's going to be a sideshow and it'll be a circus. And Mr. Trump said he would be arrested today on March 23rd, and he's calling for people to riot. I don't even know what to say about that. He's calling the American people to riot his indictment. Now, from all outward signs, this call is not being as well heard as January 6th was 2 years ago. And the Republican leadership found enough wherewithal, so to speak, to say, no, please don't riot. But they're all supporting Mr. Trump in this. Now, Georgia, we'll see. But in this, they all say this is just a political witch hunt. And they may have more to go on this case than they would if they tried this with Georgia. Plus, there's a couple other indictable cases looking, about his tax returns and things of that nature. Will this make Trump more or less electable? It'll make him less electable, but maybe more nominatable, if that's a word. What I mean is this: people that participate in the nominations are true believers in the Democrat or Republican Party. Okay, they take this stuff seriously. I vote in the nomination processes, but there are people, a lot of people take it much more seriously than I do. They are active and ardent in their political support of either party. They're the ones that show up in the first Tuesday of March every other year to vote in these primaries, where the average voter sits it out or doesn't even know what's going on half the time or doesn't really care. So this will make Trump a hero to the more conservative Republicans that he already attracts now. So I'd say it might make him more nominatable. Again, I don't know if that's a word, but it'll make him less electable. That is a word. Less electable because many of the moderates will not vote for somebody that's been indicted twice, maybe. Even if all this indictment business wasn't going on, there's going to be a lot of moderates that'll never vote for Mr. Trump in any means because of what happened at the end of his last term, because of the riots of January 6th. And I don't care what Tucker Carlson says. Those are not sightseers in the White House. Those guys there to tear things up. and the evidence is clear. Don't buy into some of this stuff that this has all been made up by the media. The evidence by the own cell phone footage by the people that participated show it was a riot. That always bugs me. Back to the matter at hand. Trump, if he is nominated, and if Biden, if he is nominated, which again I think is almost certain in Joe Biden's case, it'll be hard on the country. It'll be hard on the country. We need new people on both sides. We don't need 80-year-old men. We don't need the kind of person like Mr. Trump who's antagonistic to 2/3 or more of the people he pretends to govern for. We don't need a guy like Mr. Biden anymore, who I think his mental and physical abilities are declining right before our eyes, despite what they'll try to tell you. Also, the fact that he is not somebody that's going to stick with any of his positions. The only position I really think he stuck on that I personally support, and I'm appreciative at least of that, is Ukraine. I do appreciate that, and I'll give him credit for that. But I think his other areas of foreign policy, like in Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia and Iran, are disastrous. But I will give him credit for Ukraine. But we don't need Mr. Trump, who actively despises most people in this country. And he purposely and enthusiastically creates an us versus them mentality amongst the American people. He has infected politics all the way down to the local level with this idea of us versus them. This is what happens in our beautiful little town of Burleson when we have these kind of elections like we did a couple of years ago. So far, God willing, we're going to try to avoid that this time, but we've had them, and I don't blame Trump for everything, but I do believe that mentality of us versus them has seeped all the way down into local politics. As far as Mr. Biden goes, this complete cavalier disregard of economic realities with these crazy budgets with $1.5 trillion of deficits and delusional tax plans that'll never get enacted. I want somebody on the Democrat side that's a bit more realistic, who's willing to tell certain groups we're going to cut spending, as opposed to we're just going to raise taxes on Jeff Bezos and everybody will be happy. That's not going to work either. Neither of these candidates are what the country deserves, but that may be what they get if we don't take it seriously. Do I have a personal Republican that I'd like to see run right now? Tim Scott. Now, if you don't know who that is, he's a senator from South Carolina. And if Tim Scott gets into the race, I'm putting a sign in my yard, which I don't usually do for national politicians. But I would vote for Tim Scott every day and twice on Sunday. And maybe that's a discussion for another time. If I could pick a Democrat one, I really honestly, I don't know if I could do that, because the kind of Democrat I would want would never get elected. So there you go. I feel better now. Don't you, Taylor? I got that off my chest now.
You know what? I feel so much better too. Thank you.
Okay. Jeff B says, what Democrat would you rather see in there? I'm not going to dodge that question. Sorry, just answer it. Well, Jeff, I'll try to answer it as best you can, best I can, rather. I know the type of Democrat. I'm not expecting a Democrat to be like Ronald Reagan, but you know who? One of the, I like a Democrat that has been consistent in his or her policies, but is economically realistic. It doesn't send us budgets that have no chance of passing with $1.5 trillion deficits. They say, well, how about Joe Manchin? He's a moderate conservative type Democrat. Something along those lines. But that'd be better. Joe Manchin type. I don't know about Joe Manchin himself, because he's done some things I've not been real crazy about. Who else? I'm trying to think of some Democrat names out there. Not some of the names I see thrown out there, like the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, or those yahoos. It would have to be somebody that is moderate enough to not put the fear of God in me, but probably liberal enough to get the Democrat vote. I have a friend that tells me about Sherrod Brown, the senator from Ohio. I don't know enough about Sherrod Brown to really state that, but that's the kind of Democrat. I can't really give you a name. People like that occupy, like Warren or Sanders or some of these other yahoos. No, thank you. But I don't hear any names floating out there. other than Joe Biden. So I hope that answers, Jeff. I hope it answers your question as best I can. I just have checked out Tim Scott a whole lot more, and I think people that really are, the real Republicans, if you will. I don't want to say that exactly like that, but that's what I mean. The people that have been part of real Republican in the sense that this is who he has been or she has been all his or her life. Donald Trump became a Republican in 2015. He used to be pro-choice. He used to be involved in all these liberal causes until he decided in 2015 to run for the Republicans. Now, I want somebody like Tim Scott, who, if you don't know him, he is a man of color from South Carolina, single mom, raised him, and he and his grandpa and his mother put him through school, and now he's senator from the state of South Carolina. That's a great story. Jeff says, I can't underestimate the importance of a good statesman as well. Country could use some good PR. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. This may sound odd. I don't particularly endorse everything Jimmy Carter did as president. I was in high school then, and even then I could see things are just out of whack. Some of that wasn't his fault. Some of it was. We can debate Mr. Carter later, but we could use a man of Mr. Carter's character. We could use a man of Mr. Carter's integrity. Okay, Mr. Carter is a man of faith, always has been, always was. And again, I'm not saying I liked all his policies. I did not. But we need a man like that, or a woman like that, of character, integrity, and honor. I think Jimmy Carter, God rest his soul, he's coming close to the end. He'll one day soon we'll get the news he's passed. We could debate his presidency all you want, but I don't think there's any debate of the kind of man he is. And we could use that kind of person in the White House today. Okay? Maybe that'll answer Jeff's question about Democrats. I hope it does. Just somebody of character, somebody with integrity. And that's all I got to say about that. All right. On Thursday, I have Meatmeisters coming in. They're going to have their annual Easter ham sale. No kidding, that ham is great. You want to hear this show, obviously, because I need the numbers. It's always good. But they'll tell you when and where and how much. And I took it last year, and we ate on it for Easter. And my mother asked me where I got the ham, and I told her. And so when I was talking to her a couple of days ago, we are making the Easter plans, which is about 3 weeks away, she asked me if I was going to bring one of those hams. Also, next week, I'm going to have Harvest House, and I'm also going to have Reach Across Johnson County. Erica Byers is going to come in. This is the first time she's been by herself on the show. She came back in September when we had the group meeting of nonprofits, and she's going to come in this time. Thank you, Jeff, for your participation. And it ends up with this last statement. Carter truly served the American people more than almost any other president. And that's true also in a lot of ways. He U.S. Naval Academy and all the other service. So there you are. So tune in on Thursday and find out where you can get your Easter ham. Thank you, Taylor. I'll be in the studio. We'll have tons of fun. All right. And we'll see y'all next time.